What's up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews. Had a killer day on the NBA today. Did my tracker, sent out the post to VIP, and man, 305 units profit we've already made this NBA season. So I thought on my drive to pick up my daughter, might as well create some content. Let's talk about it. Now, if that sounds interesting, let's go. Sup to the channel, cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We got the free picks and the juice and the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me. Alright, it's been a minute since I did a driving video. Ran out of ideas, really. But talking about profit, talking about the NBA. My goodness gracious me. 305 units profit we've already made this NBA season. And the most pleasing part about it is we managed to hit that number and not stake more than 1 unit on a particular bet. There's been a lot of volume, of course, and I am a volume guy, but hey, would you rather bet volume and win 300 units profit, or only bet 3 to 5 times a day and potentially win 50 to 60 units at the end of the NBA season, right? I know what I'd prefer. So it's been pretty awesome. There's been a couple of challenges along the way, but nothing we haven't been able to get through. So I think I'll talk about some of the challenges that we've gone through this NBA season, talk about the things that are working, the things that I've learnt. I obviously haven't prepared a damn thing, but let's just talk about it anyway. Let's talk about the challenges. What's been difficult? So the start of the season was difficult, and I find the start of every season difficult because we don't have any data to work with. We don't have any sample size. We don't know how teams are playing. We don't know what rotations look like. We don't know what the hell the referees are doing. So the start of the season, that was difficult, but I find it difficult at the start of every season, if I'm being honest with you. We managed to get through that. October was really slow, but November was crazy. I think we did 70 something units profit in November. So despite the early season struggles, we absolutely annihilated that. December was the best month by far. I think we got 85 units profit there. January is very similar. So things were really smooth, and then the trade deadline, All-Star break, that bullshit started happening, and that was difficult. I found that hard as well. Players fatigued, the injury reports started going crazy, and in, what was it, February and March, probably the two most difficult ones, before the break, after the break, teams start tanking, all that type of bullshit that you need to adjust to. Those months, I only made about 40 to 45 units profit, which is fantastic, right? And then April, it's been only not even over a week of April, and yeah, we're seeing teams tank, rotations are cooked, they're all over the place, but we've stayed disciplined, waited till lineups to be announced before we make our bets most of the time. And April, it's only been 9 days and we're already close to 40 units profit already. So in terms of the challenges, time of the year has been challenging. Let's talk about what's working. Straight bets are definitely working. Since I started the straight bets plan, which is $1 a day, I started that in March. Since then, we're up like 38 or 39 units on straight bets alone, which is crazy to me. We're hitting them at 60%. I think we have a sample size of like 285 bets, maybe 300 bets since March, and a 60% hit rate on those is fantastic, especially because we're hitting a lot of those at plus money as well. So the straight picks, that's definitely working. My value plays, they've been working all season long. Earlier in the season, it was working a lot better, but it's still profitable to this day. So that's still working for me. Another thing that's working for me quite well is just waiting for lineups to be announced, not going off too early. Like, yeah, you give up the opportunity to get closing line value, sure, but at least you have more certainty with your bets. So waiting for lineups to be announced, that's definitely one thing that's helping because the projections change overnight. So that definitely helps. And if you do wait, you're able to spot some good value. So I've been betting on a lot more bench players over the past few weeks. And a lot of these bench players, role players, they've been delivering like amazingly well. Like Steven Adams, unbelievable. I don't think I've got a Steven Adams bet wrong yet. So he's been really good for me. But waiting on bench players, waiting for projections, waiting for markets to open, that's been really good. Waiting for the players has also been good for account health. I get a lot of the bets down an hour before the game starts, and that's when the books are taking the most action, so your account's less likely to be flagged. So that's all working for me. What are the things that I learnt this season though? Because this season is, like, I had goals of getting 150 units profit this season, and I set that number because last season I hit like 110 units profit. But what I didn't tell people is last season I was a little bit more aggressive in my staking. I was betting twice the stake that I'm betting now. So I was betting 2 units on straight picks last season. This season I'm only betting 1 unit on them. And this season is so much better. Like last year I had like a 6% return on your investment, which is good, but it's not, great. This season I'm at almost 15% ROI, which is huge. So it's a massive improvement on last year. So even though we're betting smaller stakes, we're making double the profit because the picks are better, the strategy's better, everything's been refined. So yeah, that's all working quite well, if I'm being honest with you. But what are the things that I've really learned from last season to this season? The biggest lesson is probably that minutes and opportunities matter. In the past, I would make assumptions around how many minutes somebody would play. And a lot of the time I'd be looking at how many minutes have they played recently, provided they haven't seen a change in their rotations and lineups with injuries and stuff, then I would assume they're going to play the same minutes, and that's not the case. So relying on projections to tell me how many minutes a player should play has made a massive difference to my game. Not only does it give me that, how many minutes they're going to play, but it means I can use props madness to kind of filter out any outliers. Like if someone's projected to play 25 minutes and they normally play off the bench, if I only look at games where they play 22 to 28 minutes, then I'm only seeing the type of production I could expect to see from them. Whereas that player might have heaps of games where they played less than 20 minutes, which pulls the average down. Or they could have heaps of games where they played over 30 minutes, which pulls the average up. So by removing those outliers has been probably one of the biggest changes that I made this season, instead of just relying so much on recent form and head-to-head matchups. So the minutes and opportunities, that's probably the most impactful thing that I've done this season. Obviously switching to props madness full time, that was a pretty big change, but a really positive one. But I would say the minutes and projections thing is probably the most impactful change. The other is like relying on, it's not even a data point, it's the eye test. When you watch games and you see why bets lose or why bets won, you start to figure out certain things within an offense or certain things within a defense that the data is not going to tell you. And what I mean by that is because as part of my reflection every day, I look at why bets lose, and then I watch some film on why the bets lost to see what happened. I look at shot attempts, I look at how teams are playing defense, I look at rebounds and stuff like that to figure out how they're actually happening. And I do that not only to explain why bets lose, to determine whether it's a good bet or not, but I take learnings out of that and then use them in future bets. Like one good example is like when Isaiah Hartenstein came back for OKC after his injury. When he first started playing with OKC this season, Chet had already been out injured. Hartenstein comes back. At the time, OKC allowed the fewest points to pick and roll ball handlers in the league. The fewest points by far. And that's because Chet was good at playing up, applying some pressure, yada, yada, yada. And then when Chet was out, they were able to still maintain the same level of pressure because they had Jalen Williams playing at the 5, very mobile, able to defend on the perimeter. So they were still very good at defending the pick and roll ball handlers. And then Isaiah Hartenstein joined the team, and he isn't as good at limiting points to pick and roll ball handlers because big guys like him, they tend to sit in drop coverage. What that means is they sit closer to the basket, and they do allow a lot of pull-up jumpers, and they hope to minimize the amount of layups that they give up around the basket. And a lot of other bigs do that as well. So if you just relied on the data and the stats, you would be like, OKC don't give up points to pick and roll ball handlers at all. But in that initial week after Isaiah Hartenstein joined, it's something I noticed very quickly. I noticed it in the very first game that he played, that he sits back in drop coverage, and then OKC started giving up points to pick and roll ball handlers again, and their defense wasn't as good. So it's like, I think there was a bet. I remember the first game I took a bet. I don't know if it was a Trae Young, a Jalen Brunson, I don't know who it was. It could be a Booker or Anthony Edwards. It was one of those key players who rely heavily on pick and rolls. And my bet in that first game that he played OKC was straightforward. It's like, they don't give up points to pick and roll ball handlers. Done. Let's bet it. Then I watched it back. I saw it happen. And I was like, Hartenstein's not up. He's playing down. And they got buried in that game. And then I made the pivot from that point to understanding it's not just what the data says, because a lot of that pick and roll defense is correlated to who is playing the defense, right? You can easily imagine no Case and Wallace, no Lou Dort, and no Chet Holmgren. Their pick and roll defense is not going to be as good. So in those moments when those guys are out, there might be an opportunity to bet there. But I would never have figured that out unless I looked to see why bets lose. I could have easily just said that player sucks, or that player was too good, or whatever it is. But by looking in and figuring it out, I was able to then create new angles and strategies and systems off the back of that. So that's one thing that worked really well, is going back to figure out why bets lose, why bets win, because there's a lot of players who have very similar players across the league. And if you find another player in a similar type of matchup, then it could be another angle for you. So that's one thing that worked really well. One thing I learned this season, which I can take forward, I can take it into the next NBA season. The WNBA is coming up. My strategy in the NBA works in that as well. If anything, it works a little bit better, because when those girls decide to be dominant, man, they can be dominant as hell. So you can find some massive value in betting on those. Another thing I want to talk about is where I could be better. So where are the opportunities? I always wanted to get better at straight picks, which over the last 6 weeks have been excellent. And there has been some changes in my processes and strategy, which have helped and supported that. But the other areas where I want to get better when it comes to sports betting, I know that there's a gap in my process around looking at schedule, strength of schedule, matchups, fatigue, and all that type of stuff as well. So I want to get better and have better habits around looking at that, because fatigue is definitely a thing, and it also impacts minutes, which I called out earlier, which is really impactful. So looking at the schedule is something that I want to look more into. NBA.com has even more advanced data on there that Props Madness doesn't necessarily have yet, and there's a lot of opportunity to refine things even further by looking at the advanced data a lot better. There's also an opportunity for me when it comes to looking at on and off court numbers. So you could use Fantasy Labs and really look at who's off the court, who's on the court, and how well do they play. It's not something I do too often because it can be a little bit time consuming, but I know if I got better at doing that and I did that more consistently, it'll probably give me a 1% to 2% improvement on everything that has been happening, because it's easy to look at games where certain players do not play, but you can get more detail if you look at the data when the players are on and off court, because you're going to get a bigger sample size of minutes. You're going to get more data to work with. If you just looked at games where, like today we bet on Khalil Ware and Bam Adebayo was out, but there's only a 2-game sample of Khalil Ware playing without Bam Adebayo when he plays a lot of minutes. Whereas if I just used Fantasy Labs and looked at Khalil Ware when Bam Adebayo was off the court, would have got a bigger sample size of the types of production that he could produce, and then you could do some hood math to see if there's an edge there. So I know that that's an opportunity for me as well to get a little bit better. It is a little bit more time consuming, but if it makes dollars, then it makes sense, right? So yeah, that's a couple of things off the top where I know I want to get better at. Another thing actually that I do want to get better at is like betting on totals and spreads. And it's not necessarily betting on total and spreads, but having a better indication of what the outcome's going to be. So if you've been telling the channel, not a lot of the times, but sometimes when a bet loses, a lot of the times it loses because the game script doesn't go the way that I would have expected. I often rely on like the closing line to tell me like whether the game's going to be close or not. There's been a lot of times where there's like a 4-point spread, and I was like, oh, the game must be close, so these players will play all their minutes, yada, yada, yada. If the game's close, easy. This guy will play 30 minutes or whatever it may be. But unfortunately, a lot of these games end up in blowouts, and then I've got to recap and be like, well, the game didn't go the way that I expected it to, so the players didn't perform the way I expected it to. I want to try to eliminate the amount of times I have to say that by getting better at figuring out the spread, figuring out the total. If I can get better at capping that, then it's going to make it a lot easier when it comes to player props. So that's definitely a big opportunity for me as well. So even though I've made over 300 units of profit on the NBA season, not betting more than a unit on a particular bet, which is pretty outrageous if you ask me. There's still a lot of improvements that could be done. So I, for one, am excited. We've got the playoffs coming up soon. The playoffs over the last few years have always been difficult for me to bet on, and I know for a lot of people they found them difficult as well. But I'm up for the challenge. I'm excited by it. I'm much better at betting on the NBA now than I have ever been in my life. The playoffs brings a different challenge, and I welcome it. Let's go, bring it on. So hopefully we can make some profit over this NBA season, throughout the playoffs, and then we get the excitement of the WNBA. There's been a lot of off-season changes, team changes. There's still only 4 good teams in the league, but a lot of them have changed teams, which is going to make WNBA prop betting a little bit difficult to start off with, but I'm excited to put the strategy that's made me so much money on the NBA, putting that in place in the WNBA as well. So a lot of excitement to come. In terms of the VIP, if you guys are interested in checking that out, I do have a discount code in there. It's 50% off for the next 2 months. I'll leave links to all the discount codes down below. You can get on the Straight Picks plan for only $1 a day. If you want to trial the Straight Picks plan, all you got to do is buy a challenge of Player Profit. It's a new partner of mine, and it's one that I'm most excited about. The reason being is I can play on this, I can use it, I have been using it. There's a massive incentive for playing on Player Profit, because the way that I broke it down, I did some numbers. Like, you could spend $30 and get $1,000 bankroll, or you could spend like $1,000 and get $100,000 bankroll. So like the multiplier is so much bigger. Now, I'm not saying to go out there and spend $1,000, but what I'm saying is the bigger plan that you get, the more value you're getting in terms of bankroll. And a lot of people started off with a $29 challenge, right? So they got access to $1,000 bankroll. I bet you more than half of these people already have a bankroll that is bigger than $1,000. So what's the point of running up an account to get access to a bankroll that's smaller than your current one? That's what I've recently learned anyway, because I started with a $5,000 bankroll. I bought into that and I started winning on it, and I was just about to get funded, and I thought, this is stupid, because even once I get funded for a $5,000 bankroll, even though the money's not mine, that bankroll is so much smaller than my current bankroll anyway. So I would still be betting less than I currently do. So then I stopped using that one. I bought into another challenge, spent the money, bought the $100,000 challenge, and if I get funded on that, instead of me running $100 on my Straight Picks, I could then run $1,000, $2,000 to $5,000 on my Straight Picks, and eventually get 70% of the profits that I make. So even if I only go 2 to 3 units up on a day, which I definitely can when it comes to Straight Picks, if I go 2 to 3 units up, that's like $2,000 to $3,000 or $5,000 to $6,000, depending on how much I make my units. And if I'm going to get 70% of the profit of that, I could potentially be winning thousands of dollars each day. But that's just where my mind goes when it comes to Player Profit. I think I'm really excited about that, not only because my bets are doing well right now, but Player Profit gives us an opportunity that I've never seen before, the ability to bet a lot bigger because the money is not yours. All you have to do is prove that you're good at betting, and then you're in. So you guys can check that out. I'll leave a discount code for that as well. But yeah, if you do sign up and you purchase a challenge and Player Profit, send me an email, and then I'll also get you a free trial on my Straight Picks and help you guys get funded as well. So join the journey, gang. But look, I've just reached my destination, about to pick up my little princess. I'll catch you guys on the next video. Best of luck. I appreciate y'all.